In a previous video, we talked about the ins and outs of dreams. Go and check that out if you missed it. In most cases, you dream when you sleep. That's the norm for most of us. Sometimes your body wakes up before your mind, and then you're kinda confused until you realize the dream is over and you're up and awake. But other times, it's the other way around. Your mind is fully aware, but your body isn't. That's called sleep paralysis, and it can be one of the most disturbing things that can happen to you. Hello, and welcome to 7 Facts. So what is sleep paralysis? While waking up, or sometimes when you fall asleep, you become aware and fully conscious, but you're paralyzed. You can't move, you can't speak. Now, this is not that weird in itself. Normally, your muscles are paralyzed while you're dreaming. This is to prevent your body from acting out what's going on in the brain. But in a case of sleep paralysis, your mind might also start to hallucinate and you can hear, feel, or see things that are not real. Sounds scary? It is. Imagine being immobilized in your bed and you hear a humming or hissing. Voices might creep up to you, they might whisper in your ears and straight up roar or shout. You feel a pressure on your chest and have difficulty breathing but are still unaware to move and look around. A sensation of being dragged out of bed or flying gets hold of you as your body feels numb and tingly. And in some cases, you might actually see something bad, evil, ugly staring at you. Would you panic? Would you be afraid? Yes, you would. That's the single most common feeling described by those who experience sleep paralysis. And such an episode might last anywhere between 30 seconds and 6 minutes. I never experienced this, nor do I want to, but around 8% of people will go through something like this at least once in their lifetime. So what on earth is causing this strange and frightening phenomenon? The short answer is we don't know for sure, but of course there are several good theories about its cause. Sleep paralysis is classified as a type of parasomnia, a sleep disorder that results from a dysfunctional overlap of the REM stage when dreams occur and the waking stage of sleep. It's been observed that people who experience sleep paralysis have a shorter REM sleep delay, that is, after they fall asleep they dream faster than usual. But their REM sleep cycle is also shorter and thus more fragmented throughout the night. So when regular sleeping patterns are disturbed, the body and mind can kinda become out of sync. Which is why your mind can wake up but still produce hallucinations while your body is still paralyzed as if you're still in an REM stage. Another theory suggests that the problem lies in the neural functions that regulate sleep. Basically, the cells that should be bringing you out of a sleep state have difficulty in overcoming the signals sent by the cells that keep the brain in the sleep state. The signals become jammed and overlapped, and you end up with a confused but awake mind still stuck in an REM stage environment. In any case, evidence suggests that there is a genetic component to sleep paralysis. The characteristics of sleep paralysis, like fragmented REM sleep, are heritable in other parasomnia disorders. Studies have shown that in the case of identical twins, if one twin experiences sleep paralysis, there is a very high chance the other one will too. A genetic component to this disorder means that there's some sort of a physiological disruption. We just don't know for sure what it is. Hearing or feeling things while waking up or falling asleep is not really that uncommon. Many people experience these types of hallucinations. But seeing demons and aliens, feeling that there's an intruder in the room, or feeling that you're floating or being dragged, that's pretty rare. However, there is an explanation as to why during sleep paralysis you might see and feel something absolutely horrifying. The theory is that it's all neurological. During an episode of sleep paralysis, the mechanisms that coordinate body movement and provide information on body position become activated, although they shouldn't. Because there is no actual movement, since at the same time you're still paralyzed, there's a conflict of information that's being interpreted as floating or dragging. You sort of go through an out-of-body experience, but with a catch. Your threat-activated vigilance system is also activated. This system is responsible for differentiating between dangerous situations and determines whether the fear response is appropriate or not. And your brain activates an emergency response because upon waking up it's detected that it's paralyzed and thus vulnerable to attack. So your out-of-body experience becomes a frightening attack that scares the bejesus out of you. Since you can't move and don't know what's going on, and your brain is still partially in a state where it can easily create vivid sensations, the result is a terrible hallucination. The perceived threat encourages the brain to create an evil presence. In most cases, that presence attempts to suffocate or strangulate you. Why? Well, you're paralyzed, remember? That means that you can't voluntarily control your breathing. It's all automatic and typical to REM breathing patterns. That is, you have a shallow rapid breathing, a slightly elevated level of CO2, and a small blockage of the airway. All of this leads to a sensation of suffocation which makes you want to breathe deeply, but you can't. This feels like a resistance, a pressure on your chest that your threat-activated vigilance system interprets as a supernatural thing that's trying to kill you, which makes you feel more trapped, which leads to more panic, which leads to a stronger suffocation feeling, which leads to more vivid hallucinations. What a fun little feedback loop, ain't it? What can you do if you suffer from sleep paralysis? Well, the first thing is an accurate diagnosis of the condition. And that isn't as easy as one might hope. The main tool that's being used is a clinical interview. You have to describe the feelings you're having. That's because there are several sleep disorders that can cause feelings of paralysis or vivid hallucinations, but each disorder slightly or heavily differs from the other. For instance, the exploding head syndrome, which is quite common, could be mistaken for sleep paralysis. That's when you hear hallucinate a brief loud noise just as you fall asleep or wake up. It scares you and is often accompanied by a jerking of the body, but this is not something to be concerned about. Night terrors are also similar to sleep paralysis, but that's a different disorder altogether, albeit equally terrifying. You could also suffer from PTSD, panic attacks, or have a nightmare disorder, and all of these differ from sleep paralysis and are treated differently. So the best thing that you can do is be honest, don't hold back, and try to be as accurate as possible. If you are, however, a drug user, be it recreational drugs or alcohol, you do have a high chance of experiencing sleep paralysis from time to time. The next step is prevention. If you ever suffered from sleep paralysis or you know there's a history of it in your family, try to avoid sleep deprivation, stress, intense physical fatigue, and erratic sleep schedules. If you suffer from insomnia, seek medical help because that can also trigger an episode of SP. Interestingly, even your sleeping position can be important. Laying on your back while sleeping, called supine position, is an especially prominent instigator of sleeping paralysis. In short, the best way to avoid this horrifying experience is to make small lifestyle changes and adopt a healthier sleeping habit. In very rare cases though, the situation becomes serious enough to include medication in the treatment plan. Some people experience a degrading quality of life owed to recurrent sleep paralysis episodes and may need antidepressants. Unfortunately, no drug has been found to completely interrupt episodes, but they do help alleviate the severity of the attacks. So are you at risk of experiencing sleep paralysis? Most likely the answer is no. Only approximately 8% of the population goes through this, so it's not at all common. Both males and females can be equally affected, so it's not a gender-related disorder. In most cases, psychiatric patients are the most common groups that experience sleep paralysis at least once in their lifetime. People who suffer from narcolepsy have a high chance of suffering from SP2 as an auxiliary symptom. Narcolepsy is a disorder that involves a decreased ability to regulate sleep-wake cycles. Anyway, if you're worried about developing sleep paralysis later in life, don't be. While it's not the rarest disorder in the world, it's also not very common. Having said that, because the symptoms are so terrifying, sleep paralysis has become quite famous. It has been known for centuries, although it wasn't considered a medical condition but the work of supernatural beings. Fun fact, sleep paralysis is the source for the English word nightmare. In the past, it was thought that the culprit for these symptoms was an incubus or succubus, a male or female demon that lied on the sleeping person to engage in sexual activity with them. In Old English, these beings were called mare, hence the word nightmare. And the cultural influence of sleep paralysis doesn't stop there. Old stories of ghosts, demons and demonic possessions describe what we now know are the symptoms of SP. More modern stories like alien abductions in the middle of the night also fit the description. Legends and superstitions abound in all corners of the world, from Denmark to Italy, Cambodia to Nigeria, all the way to America. Interestingly, Egypt stands out when it comes to sleep paralysis. Here, sufferers are more likely to experience longer and more intense episodes. And the reason is the local folklore. Many Egyptians believe that sleep paralysis is caused by a violent jinn attack. Nearly half of Egyptians who go through SP associate it with great fear of impending death, and that aggravates the symptoms. Anyway, while sleep paralysis is not at all a common disorder, it did play a significant role in virtually all cultures around the world. Nowadays, we know that it isn't a demon that's causing these symptoms, and the disorder is perfectly manageable in most cases. Even so, it's still freaking terrifying. Sleep tight. I hope this video was interesting enough to have inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. You can leave your comments downstairs, and you can also check out my Patreon page if you want to support me. The link is in the description. I hope to see you next time. Bye.